and seasons held within, of sun-warmed sweet fruits springing forth in summer, and crimson crisp autumnal elegies to life, death, and resurrection. I'm a counselor by profession, and we've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but I've really witnessed in my own life and also in the lives of people that I've worked with the transformative power of creative arts, of writing, of art and theater. And anyway, for me, I'm going to share a poem with you next that comes out of a place in my journey to wholeness that writing helped me with, and also is inspired by the works and words of a wonderful woman, Najwa Zabian. She's a Canadian Lebanese poet and educator and activist, and she really goes and promotes the practice of writing and journaling for healing. So this poem is called The Mountain, and I begin with an epigraph that's a line from one of her poems. And that line is, "These mountains that you are carrying, you are only supposed to climb." My body has taken on shapes of my past, eaten abandonment and shame the way some people eat a bag of chips. No one taught me that those things happened to me. They didn't define me. So, like an amoeba encircling its food, making it part of the whole as means of ingesting, I consumed and imbibed the pain, becoming a mountain of heaped on guilt and self-loathing. Discovery came slowly. Small cracks in the surface led to rock slides, and with the shedding of strata layers came the realization that the true body and spirit lay underneath. The mountain is becoming two hills. One, simply rubble, fragments of time and occurrences, moral debris easily scaled and walked over. The other, a force of nature, with an iron core and a will forged by fire, tough as the rock bed of the earth itself. It was my aunt, Daryl Ann, who read just a few minutes ago, and she shared a little bit about my mom. And as we celebrated Mother's Day just a few weeks ago, I wanted to share something that I also had written for her. The meaning, of course, of Mother's Day changed greatly for me 8 years ago, but my mom was a very strong and complicated woman, and she fought fiercely. She did ultimately succumb to cancer, but I wrote this poem that I'm going to share on the first anniversary of her death. We had interred some of her ashes in a special place and planted a perennial flower over at one of her favorites, and I went back on the first anniversary, and I returned to find that Coreopsis plant had died, so that image became a vehicle for me to express some of my grief and longing for my mom. So this is called Coreopsis. I took it for granted that you would survive. Even now, I forget until I stumble on your absence anew, and a bone-gnawing feeling in my gut recalls temperate spring days when your mere presence somehow made the sun shine brighter. You had survived worse winters before, retreating into the darkness, lying dormant yet always productive, roots digging deeper, amassing strength from some unknown silent source in the depths, until the moment you would surface again, first dark green, sprouting slowly, unfolding hardy, resilient splashes of orangey gold. Simple but majestic buds danced unapologetically, anchoring my landscape, adding vibrance and character. I tried to tend you meticulously in that last season, mind always aware of water, timetables, and your needs, but I was the better for it, seeing as each storm passed those thin stems trodden down by the elements, rising up again and again, bearing petals as a sacrifice of praise. Now I am left alone, bereft. I try to rebuild the landscape with other blossoms, but nothing has filled the void left by your dying. I find my single solace in echoes of gold that still reverberate in my mind's eye. I'm going to go a little happier for the ending poem here. We'll change gears. My husband and I married later on in life, and in many ways I think it's a good thing to wait a little bit later to get married, but the transition of moving in together was difficult because we were both pretty set in our ways. We had several discussions about decorative pillows and the number of pillows that are allowed on the bed. So I'd like to finish up by reading this poem to my husband Eric. I wrote this on the day that I discovered when I become a little over particular and he agrees to do things my way anyway, those words, yes dear, actually really mean I love you. So this is called 3 Little Words. His vocabulary has changed since our moving in together. Words like purpose, function, and use now coexist and find their way into phrases with terms like bed skirt, European sham, and throw pillow. He still questions the logic of purely decorative items when completing his nightly duty of taking the shams off the bed and placing them on the armchair. He forbears, involuntarily chuckling as I attempt to persuade him of the rhetoric of my vigilant pillow placement and the reasoning behind my many bed-making rules. He made the bed for me this morning since I was running late to work. I arrived home and discovered 3 lines of properly plumped pillows placed in dark to light order, back row taupe, then sage, then cream printed shams, pillows appropriately propped up against the headboard, seams facing down and spread outward, and an espresso colored throw pillow placed slightly left of center. Thank you.
We enjoy your poems at the Depot on winter nights also. They're really funny. Next we have Warren Harris. Warren has been here been part of the writers group for a long time. I first met him I'd read down there, and I don't like to get feedback. I just like to read my poems, and so they're very gracious about that. They didn't kick me out or anything. And the next day or so, we were walking the Creeper Trail, and I ran into this gentleman. It was Warren. He said, I liked your poem you read the other night down to Creeper Trail, and said, I'd like to have a copy of it. Said, I'm maybe put it in the Clinch Mountain Review. So, Warren, you've been great to a lot of us in getting this published. So, Warren Harris.
Thank you, Henry. I want to add my word of thanks to Friends of the Library and Ben Jennings for organizing this event for several years now. Being a poet, what does it mean? Well, I remember Rita saying one time, if you're a poet, you get no money and you get no respect. Well, today reminds me, and the writers group always reminds me, yeah, but it's a lot of fun. So anyway, well, I've been on a project for the past few years, writing poems in response to pictures by the painter Marc Chagall, 20th century painter who grew up in a house with not one picture on the wall, but discovered thousands of pictures inside of himself. Most of you probably can think of a Chagall picture, but if not, let me just describe it extremely briefly as very colorful and very fanciful, but also serious, and many of his poems are on biblical themes, and I somehow seem to have resonated with that, and so I'm going to read 3 poems, 3 brief poems that deal with various paintings of his. The first one has one word in it you may not know. It's a Yiddish word, shidl, which means a village. I don't think I quite pronounced that right, but that was close as I can come right now. This is called Psalm 19 in the Countryside, suggested by Chagall's painting Peasant Life, 1925. What a simpleton. He bears a space-toothed grin at mere pleasure in feeding his horse a tasty green-topped radish. The arching sky is his blue panorama, where he calls to mind his few small acres near the Stettles, a carriage ride, a dance with his wife, and a lamplit meal while he cuddles his new child. See how the Lord can make the simple wise. All right, this is one of his biblical poems, very directly biblical, called, on one of his biblical paintings, I should say, called Noah and the Rainbow, and my title is Noah's Vision. After the wrath, the red and yellow-winged Lord hovers above, gushing out a whole fresh cosmos in a white bow of churning waters, its flotsam re-quickened with shapes and breath. Turquoise, orange, and blue conjure a new paradise of buds and leaves, doves, worshippers, lovers, the innocence of a rooster-riding bride, the experience of a diving, goat-headed man, and Noah lounging in one corner on his elbow, head in hand, content to be contemplating the surging forth of familiar forms and, just content to be. And then the last one. This is a retrospective poem. Chagall wrote this when he was 79 years old. And he may have well thought that this was near the end. It turned out he had almost another 20 years to go. But it does have that retrospective quality. It's called, the picture is called The Horseman, and my poem is entitled The Unlikely Knight on Horseback, K-N-I-G-H-T. Harvest orange, recollected tree and dome, the moon and black smoke, roofs and rectangles, our town, once a bright candle, our house, our people, like you, my brother David, my sweet musician, falling in the dark. I paint of the past, my own Madonna of the frilly hem, and a fair-haired girl in a shimmering, armless blouse, innocent, kissable, fond of curly hair. And here I am now, astride my wreathed white horse, who rears up while he glances back to question me, his green-haired knight in circus pants. Yes, forward, my steed. I carry no lance, but sprigs of cadmiums, phthalos, and aquas. Look how my pigments have conquered this canvas, conquered life. Thank you.
Well, we're going to wrap this up here in just a moment. I have 3 poems that I wanted to share, and I appreciate, I see all of you, so many of you out here, and so many have influenced my life and been an influence on me. I came here, came back here, my wife was from here, and was assistant principal at high school, ran a prison reform program and so forth, and then left and really went to Appalachian State and various other places and lived and worked in Shenyang, China, and on and on and on. But Abingdon has always been a special place, and so many of you I owe a lot to you. And this is called Old Abingdon, and I wrote it yesterday and today. Old Abingdon, home. Today on the creeper trail I turn from the voices of the bulldozer, hear the voices of Old Abingdon, the voice of kindness, the voice of elegance, the voice of courage, saying to me, you will do fine, young man, you will go far. We, the voices of Old Abingdon, will remain in this place, home, and pass away. But our ghosts will return, and your heart and your soul will return again and again, home. That's Old Abingdon. This is a philosophy that I have about writing, and some of you like it, so I'll read it. Never read a how-to book. Between Whitman's Leaves of Grass, great poets of the world, and Charles Bukowski's Notes of a Dirty Old Man were how to read poetry, how to write poetry, and how to present poetry. Obscene titles, totally obscene titles. I started to grab the books and stomp on the covers. However, that was not acceptable for my age and station in life. May I tell you something? May I tell you something? Never read a how-to book. Never. Go deep into your soul, cry inside your heart, feel the rhythm of your joy and anger, then hurl your message to that friend or stranger who is much lonelier than you and who has read far too many how-to books. Thank you for being here today, and this is Henry McCarthy, WEHC 90.7, saying do not wait up for me, do not be afraid to stay or still away. I'm going out to write a poem and watch the children play. Thank you so much.
A little voice over my shoulder said to remind everybody of the Writers' Day of the Virginia Highlands Festival. Rita will be doing workshops, Adriana Trigiani, Eugene Wolf. It's the 27th, the last Friday of July, which is the first day of the Virginia Highlands Festival. Thank you everybody for coming.